Welcome to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Our objective is to enthuse, inspire, energize, and empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes here in BW and beyond. We do so by inviting these entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs into our makeshift studio. Sometimes we call them to the restaurant, sometimes we go to our studio, and we ask them to share their experiential knowledge, their experiences and their expertise, and we ask them as many questions as we can, aimed at empowering you also as a viewer. Hello dear viewer, dear listener, my name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Welcome to another exciting episode of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. It's always a thrill to be joined by entrepreneurs from all walks of life, them coming here to share their experiential knowledge and wisdom. I have today Mr. Tinashe Mupedziswa, who's coming here for the second time, and as a result of the response to his visit last time, there was, if you like, a very interesting reaction. So I would say that he's back by popular demand, really. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you, thank you.
For those who don't know you, you'll have to just give us a full background, who you are and what you do.
My name is Tinashe Mupedziswa, and I am an entrepreneur by profession. But I'm also many things: a husband, a brother, an uncle, and many things. But professionally, I am what they call an entrepreneur. Thank you.
What is your professional background?
Well, I have a first degree in accounting, a Bachelor of Business Administration and Accounting, and a Master of Development Practice.
Okay. We're going to talk about soul food for the entrepreneur.
Yes.
In terms of 10 key books with a bonus that you believe are essential for entrepreneurs. I actually have nuggets of wisdom on this from my perspective.
Wow.
It'd be nice to get somebody else's perspective.
Wow.
Soul food. Let's address the choice of words. Why soul food?
Well, the entrepreneurial journey is very lonely. You rarely get teachers. But we are blessed because those that have gone before us have written about it. And there are others who are studying entrepreneurship. And therefore, when you come into contact with them, they help you. I think of soul food is that food that reminds you of a special place in your life. It's a special, it's food that sits in a special place in your heart. And so, when you get into contact with these entrepreneurs, they speak to you, using a language that you can understand. And they take you to a world that only you can understand, because the journey is usually very lonely.
Yeah, there's a guy called Jack Canfield. He's famous for a set of books called Soul Food for This, Soul Food for the Teenager.
Yes.
Chicken Soup for the Soul, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Were you somehow influenced by that?
Yes. I love his Chicken Soup for the Soul. I think he really did a good job, telling those stories, inspiring stories through those books.
Okay.
So yes, I was inspired by him, and that's why I called this Soul Food for the Entrepreneur.
Okay. And the first book that you recommend is the Bible as a soul food for the entrepreneur,
Yes.
Why the Bible, and which specific books in the Bible? Because there are 66 books we're talking about.
Yes. Well, I think the Bible in its entirety, I believe, is the inspired word of God. And so, all the books there, I believe, can help you. The Bible says of itself that it's there to encourage us, and to discourage us. It's there to help us and to, in quotes, unhelp us. So it's a unique book that is there to really ensure that we get to where we're trying to go. And so that's the first book that I recommend as soul food for the entrepreneur. Yes. To add to that, I would say, for example, and this is to people who are of the Christian disposition, or who subscribe to that, to those beliefs. You know, you go to religions that say, I receive, I receive. And yet, you know, when you read the Bible itself, it's going to teach you that it is blessed to give than to receive. You know, when you read the Bible itself, it's going to tell you that you are created unto good works. It's going to tell you that let your light so shine so that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. And so entrepreneurship, in my view, is all about doing good works. Entrepreneurs do good work. You know, let me give the example of Ramachandran. You know, I love Ramachandran, you know.
He's been a guest on this show.
That's amazing. That's amazing. You know, Ramachandran will go to South Africa to get oranges and tissues and all these things and put them in the shop next to your house. So that you don't have to go to South Africa to get all those things. He is helping you. That's what the entrepreneur does. Mr. Mogobe will build buildings, you know, so that people can stay there. He's helping us, you know. So entrepreneurship is all about doing good works. And the Bible inspires us to do good works.
Okay, I asked you earlier which of the 66 books particularly are you targeting. I happen to have my favorites.
Well, yeah. Well, I like the book of Psalms because, you know, it's an honest book. You know, the guy cries when he needs to cry. He praises when he needs to praise. He shouts when he needs to shout. And he dances when he needs to dance.
The guy you're talking about, David.
David, yes. Yes, the author. And so I think it's a very sincere book, and I love that. I love that, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
My favorites personally in terms of entrepreneurship is the book of Proverbs and the book of Ecclesiastes.
All right.
There are others, but I mean those are the top two.
Yeah.
All right. Now you talk about a guy called Jim Rohn. That's your number 2.
Yeah.
And this is a guy that has really impacted me personally.
Yeah.
And there's a video of his where he talks about fig trees without figs. Unacceptable.
Yeah.
Where he basically recaptures the story of Jesus, where he went past a fig tree, and then because he was hungry and he wanted fruit and there was nothing there, and then the whole message being that if you're unproductive, that's not acceptable to God. So I wonder what other lessons or what specific books you are referring to when you're talking about the late Jim Rohn.
Yes. So Jim Rohn has a book called The Philosophy to Successful Living. And, you know, that book made me leave my job. It literally inspired me to quit my job. And one of the statements in the book says, no one gets paid for the time they spend in the office. And no one gets paid for the effort that they put. And he says, his argument is, if we're paid for the time that we spend in the office, security guards would be the highest paid people. And we have to respect them. They keep us safe. You know, if we're paid for the effort that we put, laborers will be the highest paid people. And we need to respect them. You know, they help us with in a lot of ways.
We can't do without them.
We can't do without them. But he says we are paid for the value that we bring to the marketplace. And he says anyone can bring value. It's all about helping people. I talked about Ramachandran earlier. You know, he's bringing value. Because now you don't have to go to South Africa to buy tomatoes and tissues and all of these things. You know, he has brought them to the shop next to your house. He has helped you. And guess what you do with your hard-earned money? You say, Mr. Ramachandran, please take this money. And please give me those lemons and those oranges. And you go with them home. He has helped you. So we get paid for the value that we bring to the marketplace.
Now, still on Jim Rohn, is there a couple of quotes or a couple of anecdotes from his teaching that you want to share?
Well, you know, there are many, but, you know, this particular one that I've just mentioned is the one that hit me because it led me to quit my job. Because I thought to myself, why should I keep myself confined to this office when I can just go and bring value to the marketplace? If I just identify an opportunity and bring value, I'm going to get paid.
One of my anecdotes about him is that really it's never the economy.
Yes.
It's never the circumstances.
Yes.
It's never everything. For instance, I think he says that they say there was a recession, but I refuse to participate in the recession. His whole argument is that you have to be willing to start complaining about government. You know, he says some people, when there's a democratic government, half of the people complain.
Yeah.
When there's a Republican government, they complain.
Yeah.
And it's about time we realize that it's not about the government.
Yeah.
It's about you.
Yeah.
It says, first you change.
Yeah.
And if you change and you develop, everything around you
Everything
will
will
change.
change,
To me,
yes.
that has touched me a lot.
Yes.
And then he's got so many other examples that he shares there.
Yeah.
And he's there on YouTube, and he impacted me.
Yeah.
Maybe not to the extent that he did with you, but I think he catapulted me mentally to start thinking, so I have the power,
Yeah.
so that I have the responsibility.
Yeah.
So if I'm responsible,
Yeah.
then it can never be anybody else's fault.
Yes.
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 Okay. You want
Yeah.
to add anything on Jim Rohn?
Well, I mean, it's that, he talks about the seasons of life as well. That, winter comes, after winter is autumn, after autumn is the spring, after the spring is the summer. And he says that all those seasons will always come, but you need to do what is relevant for the season. If it's winter, do what is right. And he says there is no growth. If winter is there to stop the growth of before, and to dry those leaves and to get them down. After that, the winds will come to blow them away.
Yeah.
And he says, so the winters of life will come, the hardships of life will come to block, to close the old chapter and to pave way to new chapters. And so, I love Jim Rohn, and if you
So he says that success is seasonal.
he says, no, it's a journey.
Yeah.
It's a continuous journey.
That goes through seasons.
Yes, it goes through seasons. Yes.
So don't be surprised when you're in the middle of winter.
Yes.
You know that summer, autumn, spring, they're coming.
True.
Okay.
True.
All right. Another person you are very fond of is Henry Ford.
Yes.
I think the book, if I'm not mistaken, is My Life, My Work.
Yes.
Why should the listener be interested in that particular book?
Well, I would say to them, for two reasons. My Life, My Work is a classic. Two things. It's a well-written book, the story of Henry Ford. But for me, what stood out in the whole book is the idea of, he says, cut the fat. Henry Ford was competing with Chevrolet and other cars that had started before the Ford. And what he did was he went and got the strongest metal, but yet the lightest. And he says that he removed the bulk, the unnecessary stuff. And he just put the stuff that the customer needed. He says he emphasized on the things that the customer needed. And by doing that, he ended up getting a very efficient product. So, the lesson from Henry Ford is cut the fat. Don't do the unnecessary stuff. Focus on what the customer wants and be 110% on what the customer wants and perhaps zero on what the customer doesn't want.
Yeah, it sounds to me like something Bezos would say. Jeff Bezos
Indeed.
talks about being obsessed with the customer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anything else on Henry Ford?
Well-
Is he not the guy who's famous for saying, whether you say you can or whether you say you can't, you are both right?
Yes.
In other words, both are right. It's just up to you.
Yeah.
You can do something if you want. You can fail to do something if you want to fail.
Yeah.
Well, what do you say about that?
No, and he's right. He's absolutely right. Because it's all about attitude. That's one of the things that he emphasizes on. Your attitude will determine your altitude. If you believe you can, you're going to do what it takes to get the results you want. If you believe you can't, then you are also going to do what it takes to make sure that you fail. So it's all
You
within
self-sabotage.
You self-sabotage. Thank you so much.
If you don't have the faith.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, there's a famous CEO that you talk about called
Yeah.
Jack Welch.
Yes.
He wrote a book. I happen to have it called Winning.
Yes.
And
yes.
I like the fact that in the 20 years that he was at GE,
Yeah.
he had such a profound impact.
Mm.
But I'm anxious to hear what you take from him.
Well, I love the book Winning, and I recommend it to anyone. And he talks about, he says, in chapter 1, he says, picture a basketball team that's losing, and how the morale in the dressing room is like. Everyone is just sad. The chins are down. Then Jack Paul says, picture the one where they are winning. The champagne bottles are popping. Everyone is hugging each other. There's a lot of joy. And then
High-fiving.
yes, there's a lot of high-fiving. And I was having this conversation with my wife yesterday, and we were saying, when we are broke, and things are not going well for us, there's a lot of blaming. No, you did this and that. Yeah, you did this and that. But when we are winning and things are going well, I forgive her for everything. She forgives me for everything.
And
All
we
my sins.
congratulate each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Jacob says, when we win, the government wins, it's going to get more taxes. Our children win, they're going to get more. The grocery stores are going to win. We're going to buy more. Everyone wins. Charities win, we're going to donate more. Churches win, everyone wins. So we shouldn't pride ourselves in losing. So there are people who like mediocre. No one wins when you play mediocre. When you say, no, me, I'm just a loser, I'm just going to hide. No one wins. But just the attitude of winning and the desire to win and following that through will benefit a lot of people.
So in other words, are we saying we should not be modest, or not just modest, meek, and saying that, look, winning is for others? The tendency to say, things for them. How do you address that? What does Mr. Welch say about that? Given his experience. I remember where he was saying that his aim is to ensure that wherever GE is operating, it's either number one or number two in its market.
Yes, yes. Well, I would say to a person who says those words, who says, it's their things, I would say to them, no one is benefiting. No one is benefiting. Your family is sad. Your parents are sad. Your children are sad. Your wife is sad. Because you're not winning. But, if you just start winning, the wife's face is brighter. I remember one incident, when we got a little bit of money with my wife, and we, in that day, we said, let's go shopping, The day ended up, everything was nice for everyone. Everything was nice for me, for her, everyone. We were happy because we were winning. But, when we were not winning, the days when we're not winning, it's a sad case. So don't settle for less. Winning is everything. Winning is everything. Set your mind on the victory. Aim to win. Aim to win.
So then how do you then handle hardships that are continually coming the way before the day of victory?
Well, eyes on the prize. Eyes on the prize. And focus on the victory that is to come.
Explain what you mean.
Well, know the result you're looking for and go for it. Some days you take one step, some days you take two, but make sure that you're focusing and you're going towards the journey.
Okay. All right.
And I encourage all the viewers to read that book, Winning by Jack Welch. Also check out his YouTube videos on winning.
Another guy is the founder of Ackerman Group.
Yes.
Raymond Ackerman.
Yes.
He says, I like the title, Hearing the Grasshoppers Jump.
Yes.
Let's analyze the title.
Yeah.
Hearing the Grasshoppers Jump. What does that mean?
He's saying the CEO's mind must be on the floor. He must be, most CEOs want to be on the top corner, but he's saying you must be with the people on the ground. You must be with your customers. You must be down to earth to the extent that you can actually hear the grasshoppers jumping. That's what he's saying with the title. Yes.
And what does the book say? What is the lesson you learned from the book?
Well, what the biggest lesson I learned from the book was on pricing. Because he says he used to fight for his customers. Pick n Pay in South Africa was one of those shops that started manufacturing certain things in-house so as to get them to the customers cheaper. So they would negotiate with manufacturers on behalf of their customers. And they would say, no, this is too high for our customers. And the manufacturers would refuse. Sometimes, all of that would happen. And then they said, no, we can't. We'll still sell your products, but we're going to start manufacturing so we can give our customers, because they had studied the market and they wanted their customers to win. And when things were bad, their customers would also fight for them. So he's saying, and he has a famous quote which says, the rich people like cheap prices or low prices, and the poor people need them. So when your prices are low, everyone is going to come to you. Yes.
So can we put that in the context of a Botswana entrepreneur?
Yes.
How do you keep the prices low?
To be honest, the principle of Henry Ford, cut the fat. Know exactly what your customer needs and focus on giving your customer what they need.
because the poor need low prices.
Yes.
And the rich what?
They like them.
They like them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, everybody wants low prices.
Yes.
Okay, that's
Yes.
very interesting.
Mm.
5 Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell.
Yes.
It's one of my favorite, by the way. I mean, just so you know, what pops into my mind is when he says, nobody cares what you know
Yeah.
until they know how much you care.
Yes. Yes.
That one I really love.
Yes.
I wonder
yes.
what you have, what's the takeaway from this book?
Well, the idea of the 5 levels of leadership, he's talking about influence, and he says leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. And so, entrepreneurs need to influence people. I need to make sure that I influence customers to buy from me. I need to influence those that I work with to do certain things. And so he talks about these 5 levels of influence. And level number 1 is you influence using your position. But when you use your position, people are not going to do it. They feel forced. It's like someone saying, do this because I'm your husband, or do this because I'm your father. You don't really inspire people by telling them that I hold the position. Yes, yes. So he says there's a second level of leadership or influence, which is relationships. If you actually develop a relationship with these people, you can influence them more. I know of a story, you can check it out on YouTube. This is a story of a little boy who was holding on to the Pope during a big program, big event. And the deacons and the people who work with the Pope were trying to get this boy away. And the little boy was just holding on, and they tried. And the Pope just left the boy. But it was it was almost like a mass. And the deacons were trying, the little boy was holding on to the Pope. And the CNN reporter then said, I wonder if this is the little boy who is the Pope's nephew. And so later on, I discovered that the Pope, they say that the Pope has a brother, and that little boy is the Pope's nephew. And because they have a relationship at home, that's what they do. This boy was now doing that in public. And the Pope was saying, no, we know each other.
Yeah.
And he's saying, no, I know you. And so because of that, if I was to go to the Pope, he would just say, guys, get this guy away. Because there's no relationship. But this boy, because there's a relationship from somewhere, he was able to influence. Yes. So that's level number 2 of influence. Level number 3 is results. When people just see what you are doing, when they see what you're achieving, you can influence them. Then level number 4 is people development. When you start investing in people, John Maxwell says they are yours for life. They are yours for life. When you invest in them, think about mothers, for example, who struggle, they take you to school, all these things. That's why everyone says, I owe it to my mother. Fathers do that as well. And they say they owe it to. So when you invest in people, they are yours for life. But the last level is personhood or legend status. And this is like the Mandela status. Where because you've done it for so long with so many people and you've helped so many people, you just become a legend. Whatever you say becomes the Bible. Everyone just follows that. Everyone just listens to you. And that's just how it is.
This is very interesting. But on these 5 levels of leadership, how did it impact you directly as a successful entrepreneur?
Well, I knew that I needed to develop relationships. You don't just come and say, I'm the boss, so do this. Relationships are important. If you...
There has to be a buy-in from your followers or from your employees.
Yes, and they need to know that you care, like you said. Yes.
Now, 4 disciplines of execution by Franklin Covey. You mean Stephen Covey?
Franklin Covey, the organization.
The Covey organization as a group.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Tell us about the 4 levels of execution.
Yes. So this is a book that every entrepreneur must read.
4 disciplines of execution.
Yeah, 4 disciplines of execution. This is a book that every entrepreneur must read. This book talks about, how, it's literally talking about how you run a business. How you set goals, how you measure them, and how you make sure that those goals are achieved. It doesn't matter how many people you're leading. If you use the 4 disciplines of execution, you get the work done. Yeah, so it's a very important book. Every entrepreneur must read the 4 disciplines of execution.
Okay, and the author is just the organization as a whole. How did they come up with the book?
Well, Franklin Covey is a rich institution with a rich history. They have people who work for them.
Because it was founded by Stephen Covey.
Yes. And so they joined up, and so they have a lot of people and a lot of partners. So I think
Customers.
yes, customers
and
as well.
people they train, etc.
Yes, and also they are trainers.
Yes.
So these trainers, I believe, came together, did a research on how execution happens, because they discovered that, the leaders were just coming. They were actually saying most organizations are like the Sunday soccer for kids.
Sunday soccer.
Yes, for kids, where kids, just kick the ball, they run after it, they kick the ball. There is no coordination, and they discovered that there's a gap between the words that are coming from the CEO and what's happening on the ground. So they then decided they developed the 4 disciplines of execution. How can the words that come out of the CEO's mouth be executed on the front line?
Are you going to summarize the 4 disciplines, what they are?
Well, the 4 disciplines, discipline number 1 is the discipline of focus.
Focus, yes?
Yes. Where you have to set clear goals. And in summary, a clear goal has a starting line and a finishing line.
It's measurable.
Yes, and a deadline. So for example, you want to lose weight. I want to lose 10 kgs by 31 December.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm moving from, let's say, 70 kgs to 60 kgs by this date. So starting line, finishing line, deadline. Many people
That's
who talk.
focus, number 1.
Yeah, focus. Yes. Then number 2 is identify the lead measures. This is very critical. They call it the discipline of leverage. Identify the key things that are going to help you lose weight. So let's say I want to lose weight. I want to lose 10 kgs by this date. Then the next thing is I need to say, maybe I'm going to run 10 kilometers. That's the critical thing.
Yeah.
Those are the critical things. And I might also not eat certain things. So if you know that if you do these 2 things, and you leverage on these 2 things, you're going to achieve your goal.
Yeah.
So you need to identify the lead measures.
Lead measures.
Yes.
Focus, identify lead measures. Number 3?
Number 3 is then developing a scoreboard, a public scoreboard. This scoreboard will be used to measure, it should be public because, performance, performance when it's public, everyone, how we sing in the shower, everyone sings in the shower. But when we're now in public, they say sing. This same person who was so confident in the shower is now quiet. So they say don't hide the performance of people. Because when you do that, they're going to hide. But when you say, guys, for example, back in the day, our salespeople for another company, we were saying to them, please see 10 customers a day, 50 customers a week, and 200 customers a month. So we were able to measure that. So, we would know who is winning and who's losing. So that's the idea of the scoreboard.
Yes.
Yes. Then, so it should be shown, this worker is winning, this worker is losing. Everyone must know. And once that thing is out there, performance changes. People behave differently when they are being watched. Yes. And the last discipline is weekly accountability.
Weekly?
Yes, weekly accountability.
What form does that take?
It's a meeting at different levels of the organization, but where these people are going to be looking at the scoreboard and saying, are we winning or we are losing? An example that they give is, think about going to a football match and there's no scoreboard. So these guys are just kicking. It doesn't inspire anyone.
It doesn't,
It's
boring.
Yes, it's boring. So now when we meet every week to look at the scoreboard to say, your department is losing, my department is losing, then there's no need for Christmas party. Now you find out that organizations that are losing are going to be celebrating for Christmas soon. That's not a good thing. You see? So we must put it out there. It must be public whether we're winning or losing. And then we should be checking on that every week. When we do that, people get engaged. It's the 4th one is called the discipline of engagement. When we see that we're losing, we gain energy, we want to win.
Wow.
It's like your football team. When it's last minute and they're losing 1-0, you discover that they gain strength. They start trying to put pressure, because they believe that we can do something. Yes.
All right. And one of my personal favorites is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by the late Stephen Covey,
Yes.
who is also part of the organization we spoke about earlier.
Yes.
That one I agree with you, and my favorite, my personal favorite is Begin with the End in Mind.
Yes.
I'm curious as to why you've chosen that book, and which one is your favorite?
Okay, my favorite habit.
Habit, yeah.
Yes.
Mine is Begin with the End in Mind.
All right. So I love Covey. He was a legend. You know, I love Covey. And my favorite habit. So I love the book. You know, it's well written. You know, it was his PhD thesis. And he had read over 1,000 pieces of literature, books, you know, and he was studying success literature. And he was saying, why do people get successful? Why do they become effective? What is the difference? And so from these 1,000 books that he read, in fact, he read all the books that were written between 1776 to 1976. 200 years of literature. And so as he read this, he distilled these 7 principles. And so it's a book based on principles. It's a very powerful book. If you can have one book, I would say take that book. You know, my favorite habit is be proactive. That's the first habit. Be proactive.
Proactive.
Yes, and he tells this story of him and his cousin. They are walking in the woods one day. They want to cut firewood, and then as his cousin is cutting the tree, you know, a snake just comes out, bites him. And then Covey says, and so the snake starts going away, you know. Covey says, no, let's run after the snake and kill it. And the cousin says, no, let's not do that. And the cousin says, it's not the snake that bites you, that kills you. It is you chasing after the snake that drives the poison to the heart.
Yeah.
And he's saying, we must be proactive. We must choose our response. So let's say, you know, you get affected by something, you know, and you start now following after that thing, you know.
And I want to know what happened in the end.
Well, the cousin was wise. So Covey says the cousin was wise. He removed the poison. He says, I'm not going to chase after the snake. Let me remove the poison. Because if I run after it, it's going to drive the poison to my heart, and I'm going to die.
Yeah.
You know. So Covey says my cousin was wise.
And so he responded well.
Yes, he responded well. So, you know, many bad things happen to us. Many terrible things happen to us. Think about Viktor Frankl, who was in the jail.
Yes, he was in Auschwitz, Western jail. It was a concentration camp.
Concentration camp, yes, by Adolf Hitler.
Yes.
But he says in that camp there, he saw others were behaving like saints and others were behaving like vagabonds. And he says the difference between the two was meaning. They were proactive, you know. So we must be proactive. We are not victims.
Few people who survived.
Sorry?
Gary, he's one of the few people who survived because of his attitude.
Yes, he was proactive. So don't follow the snake that bites you.
Yeah.
You know, let it bite you, let it go. You remove the poison. Keep focusing on what you need to focus on. That's a message to all the entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
You know, that person who betrayed you, you know, that person who stole from you, that worker who stole from you, don't let that then, you know, that poison fester inside and you're now running after that person and you're not focusing on your goals.
Yeah.
It's all about that person. You are losing twice. Don't let the snake that bites you kill you by you running after it.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other habits? There are 7 of them.
Well, I mean, that's my favorite. I also love the last one, which is renewal. Renewal. You know, you need to continue staying fresh, exercising and all of that stuff. And he says, people who are effective self-renew. They self-renew.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a classic book. I recommend it to all entrepreneurs.
Okay. There's the 8th habit. That one came a few decades later. Eh?
Yes. Yes. So he actually says, you know, when when he wrote the 8th habit, he tore the book about 12 times. He would start writing it, and you know, then you'd go back to research, and then you'd say, no, this is not in line with the research. And he says he was trying to rid himself of any prejudice. But he says that process of writing the 8th habit was the most exciting thing that he had experienced ever since the 7 habits.
Yeah.
And I think the 8th habit is a classic book. I have it. I recommend it to everyone. Part of what I love is what he calls the 5 emotional cancers. You know, those are the things that kill us. When we're not proactive, when we're not focusing.
What are those cancers?
Well, he talks about competition. You know, competing with other people other than yourself. You know, comparing yourself with other people other than yourself. You know, and many other things. You know, I won't mention the other 3 C's.
Yeah.
But criticism, we talked about criticism, always identifying the wrong in others.
Yeah.
Yes, complaining, being the victim, you know, and dampening the spirits because you're always finding, you know, I'm the victim, they did this to me, they did this to me. Covey says those emotional cancers ruin you. So he talks about the 5 emotional cancers, and he also talks about the, you know, finding to live, to love, to learn, and to leave a legacy. Those 4 things that we all must do to enjoy
is that
our
the
life.
one where he says complaining repeatedly is like drinking poison and hoping it poisons the other person.
I think I met that quote also in the book. He might have referred to it, but I don't know if he's the originator,
Yeah.
if he's the source.
Yeah. What do you think of that statement?
It's a beautiful statement. We win nothing from competition. In fact, I'm forgetting the author, but the one who talks about gratitude. You know, I think gratitude is a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
you
but
know.
I'm asking something different. I'm talking
Yeah.
about where you are endlessly
Complaining.
complaining
Yeah.
and where you are pointing fingers. You're basically a toxic person.
Yes.
He says complaining about others. I think the argument is it's equivalent to drinking poison
Yes.
and then hoping that the person you are targeting is the one who gets damaged by the poison.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, I agree 100%. You know, because complaining takes you nowhere. Complaining takes you nowhere. You know, you're always trying to find who to blame. And you're not focusing on the solution, you're focusing on the problem. So people who focus on the problem will never go anywhere, which I find to be unfortunate.
Okay. The last book, number 10, is Good to Great by Collins. I can't remember the first name of Collins.
Jim Collins.
Jim Collins.
Yes. I think Good to Great is also like the 7 Habits. It's Jim Collins is a statistician. He was working for Stanford University. And then he left and started what is called, and founded what is called a management lab, where he was just doing research. So he did research on, you know, the companies that were on the stock exchange. And he was considering companies that became great and companies that died. And, you know, so his study is all about what makes companies good and what makes companies fail. You know, good to great. So it's a empirically based study on that, which is then well written because he's a very good author, you know, well written, and he's now giving the findings.
There's a part in that book where he talks about deciding who to get into the bus and who to get on the bus.
Yes.
By the way, he's really talking about right sizing your stuff and making sure you have the right team.
Yes.
Why did you pick on that? Do you want to add something to
That's
that?
a beautiful concept. That's a beautiful concept. Because he says when you're with the right team, good things will come out. But even if you have a good idea with the wrong people, you're going nowhere. Because the wrong people will be complaining. The wrong people will say, we want more money. You know, they want to be motivated. But he says the right people are self-motivated. They will sacrifice for the cause. They love it. You know. So then he's saying, so get the right people in the right bus, in the right seats, and then get going. I think that's a beautiful idea.
But not to dampen your spirits, but do you know that a lot of companies that he glorified in that book have since collapsed?
That's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. I think also with the change, because he says the first reason is that these companies had level 5 leadership. And level 5 leadership was a combination of 2 things. Number 1 is these leaders were so humble. You know, they were so humble, they didn't want to be in magazines, they didn't want to be seen, you know, they didn't want to be on YouTube or whatever. At the time, of course, it was back in the day. But, you know, they were so humble. At the same time, they were so passionate about the success of their organization that this passion would make them fight until they win. So it was a combination of these 2 things. So I believe sometimes what happens is when these leaders leave and a new generation of leaders come and they don't have these 2 qualities, you know, they lose it. Because the humble leaders listen. Humble leaders are open to criticism, you know, and yet with the same passion, they're going to get the victory that they need. But you see, so, you know, I believe those companies might have died or are non-existent now or have since failed because maybe they changed leadership. Because he says the number 1 ingredient is level 5 leadership.
So the main thing is to stick to the principles he talks about, not so much what happened to the examples he gave.
Thank you so much. I agree with that.
All right, number 11, I don't know whether I should mention it.
Yeah.
Something to do with Mogobe, something nuggets or something.
Mogobe nuggets of wisdom. Yes.
Why did you include that one?
No, I think, I've found inspiration.
Because it's not even a book.
It's not a book, but I think it could be what we call soul food for the entrepreneur. If you don't have time to read a book, you could play that in your car as you go to work, as you come from work, wherever, which is what I do sometimes, And you're going to meet, for example, I listen to the founders of Alpha Direct.
Yes.
Yes. Those guys are legends. Those guys are legends. The way they talk about how they fundraised, and how they ran the business. Talk about the first 3 years and how, they were missing the mark and failing the shareholders and how it was painful for them. And then from there, they then talk about how they broke even and how they made it. I found inspiration in that. So you interact with other entrepreneurs, on that platform. So I think it's a beautiful thing.
So since you are on that platform, what do you want to say directly to the viewer?
I want to say to the viewer, subscribe. I want to say, like the channel. You are privileged to be interacting with wisdom from different shapes and forms. And take advantage of it. It's free. So subscribe, like, and pass it on to your entrepreneur friends. Let them also share, subscribe, and pass it on.
I heard something, I won't mention the name, but I heard that one of the large banks makes it required listening before they issue a loan to an entrepreneur. And I was flattered to learn that.
Wow, that's interesting. That's interesting.
If you listen to the nuggets before you sign here on the dotted line and get the money.
Wow.
That's what they asked the entrepreneur. I thought that was very flattering.
It is. Yeah. I mean, Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom, I think, is going places.
Yeah.
I think it's going places. And the sky's the limit.
Okay.
The sky's the limit.
This is a part of the show. I think when you first visited us, we hadn't put in this, but there's part of the show when you get to ask me as a host any question you wish to ask.
All right. Well, what question would I want to ask? I would say, what is the most painful failure that you've experienced as an entrepreneur, and what impact did that failure have on you? And before you answer, I want to say I've watched one where you're talking about how difficulties turned into.
Yeah, no, yes. I've overcome a few adversities, and I've realized that it was not an exaggeration on the part of the author of the book Think and Grow Rich, who is Napoleon Hill, when he said, inside every adversity is a promise of a greater or equivalent benefit.
Wow.
So I share 10 different calamities that occurred on me. One of the most sensational ones is when my best friend turned against me and stabbed me on the back, took a case to court against me to try and have me struck off as a lawyer. And that was painful. Yeah. But I had to deal with it. I did adopt the don't chase after the snake mentality. Yeah. Rather focus on curing the snake bite and removing the poison. Yeah. So I did manage to do that. So it was a failure of the friendship, but also something big came out of it, because as a result, I was able to redirect my focus from law to entrepreneurship. Yeah. And I've had the greatest success and the greatest benefit and the greatest joy from focusing on entrepreneurship. So it's a massive blessing in disguise. So I think that was a failing that turned out to be something big. I call it a cataclysmic event, because it forced me for 3 years while the case was pending in court to think, to introspect, to spend sleepless nights, such that when I had other disasters, like for instance the disaster where the government pulled the lease on us on this building out of nowhere for no reason, I was better able to cope with that calamity and to find ways of moving on in spite of it. Yeah. So I hope I've answered your question.
No, you've answered it well. Yeah. And so is your friend still around?
I don't want to say that because it will give you a clue who it is. Yeah. And this being a public forum, you don't want anybody feeling uncomfortable. Indeed. So I don't want to mention what happened to my friend. Yeah. Suffice it to say, I've moved on long ago from that situation, and sometimes I feel as though I could talk to him and hug him and thank him for causing the problem.
Yeah. Interesting.
Now, this is your chance to talk to the viewer, that young entrepreneur there. Say something inspirational, say something powerful, say something that they can take home.
Well, I want to say to you, entrepreneur, that you need to read. You know, and when you are reading, you're going to interact with minds like Jim Rohn, who is late now. You know, he's long gone, but you know, his golden nuggets still exist. You know, you'll interact with Steve Jobs, who's, I've read a book about him. You know, you interact with the mindsets of people like him, who are going to move you from the level of thinking that you have right now to a higher level. And I believe when you do that, when your mindset goes up, you are going to go up as well. So that's my message to you. Go and get those books, read them. And go on YouTube. Go on YouTube and listen. And the last thing is, you know, I like what a guy called Kaho says. He says, Kaho, yes. He says, he had spent about 7,000 pula on books. And then he says, you know, I've taken my pocket and I've dumped it in my mind. And I thought, wow. He's saying, you know, I'm planting seeds of money
Taken something out of his pocket and he dumped it in his mind.
Yes, and he says, I've planted it in my mind, and one day, this is, you know, money is going to grow out of that. So let's go and read those books, and let's implement what we're going to learn from those books. Thank you so much, and I wish you all the best.
Now, tell the people what your company can do for them, and also tell them how they can access your services.
All right. So we have a company called Incuped. Incuped helps small businesses with affordable office space. You know, it's a business center. It's an incubator. So we help with that. We have a company called Lenvista Management Consultants, which helps small businesses with training. You know, we've actually got a package called Mudisa package, where you know, for 700 pull-up a month, these small businesses, micro businesses, can get training as and when they need it. They can get company secretarial services. They can get, you know, they get all the business support that they need. You know, for example, disciplinary hearings, all those things. We help them with all those things for only 700 pull-up a month. So we have a company that does that. And so, you know, plus we also want to help you, you know, because we become your company secretaries, we can also help you not just with registering companies, all of that stuff, but with addressing business problems. That's what we do.
Okay, the contact details?
You can find us. We have a website, www.lenvista.com.
Lenvista.
Yes, lenvister.com. You can also find the other company on Facebook. It's called Incuped. If you just go Incuped on Facebook, you'll find us there. You'll find our services there.
Don't have a public contact number?
And then our cell, the landline, 397-4821. 397-4821. Cell phone, 777-12976. 777-12976.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tinashe. I'll call it Tinashe, it's easier.
That's all right.
Thank you for availing your skills, your mind, and your time to us. We are always enriched by great entrepreneurs passing by here at Black on the Nuggets of Wisdom. Thank you so much. When we invite you back, please do come.
You're most welcome, sir. You're most welcome. Thank you.